He'll be late.
What I mean.
Right. I can't vote on the school thing.
Oh,
What was the first? Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
yeah,
two you can set up, two you can go back.
I can't vote on it.
Yeah.
Can't vote on the school resource officer.
But you're not on that.
But
You're not on the
you're
committee.
But so is Madden in the middle of us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, you are. Sorry.
Never mind. Sorry.
I was just.
I'm getting confused. You were thinking finance.
As you were.
Okay.
I was just rolling with it. Okay, we will begin the Public Safety, Health and Welfare Committee this evening at 7:01 p.m. Present are committee members.
Not doing the opposite.
Williamson, Madden, Glassburn, council members Gilchrist, Heeman, Scarl, council president, our directors of recreation, safety, human resources, service, special assistant to mayor, economic development director, our mayor, and our law director. On the agenda this evening are 3 pieces of legislation. The first is Resolution 2023-38, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a revised cooperative agreement in partnership with the North Olmsted City School District to deploy an additional school resource officer and up to 2 to increase public safety services and declaring an emergency. Director Schofield.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is adding a second part-time school resource officer to provide better coverage across the district. It is the same template agreement as we used for the first part-time officer. This position will be assigned mostly to the middle school, allowing the school resource officer, Joanne Felton, to actually do classroom training in the elementary schools, while Officer Carbone remains at the high school. This position the funding is split with the school district, just like the other positions are, and it has already been approved in the permanent budget. I will also note, just as future reference, there could be an additional funding coming from the state to place a school resource officer or a police officer in every school moving forward, so there's probably additional funding coming down the pipe for that.
Thank you, Director. I can't recall what our portion was.
It's a 50-50 split.
50-50, okay, so that would total about how much from our roundabout? 40?
Yeah, at the
Something?
most.
Okay.
At the most.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from committee? Council? Okay. Seeing none, I believe suspension is being asked for this? Suspension? Okay. And that is, so we can put this agreement in place?
Yes, it's so that we can get the officer in the schools before they close this spring and get that going. There's increasing need for some assistance at the schools.
Okay, thank you. And I will recommend approval to all of council for resolution 2023-38 with suspension. As for second. Seconded by Councilman Madden. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And 1 abstention. Okay. The second item on the agenda is ordinance 2023-39, which is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to contract for and proceed with demolition and removal of unsafe structure located at 24094 Frank Street as a public nuisance and directing that abatement cost be certified as a lien upon said parcel and declaring an emergency. Director.
Yes, Madam Chair. The parcel and the property at 24094 Frank Street, that is in question here is the garage only. It's not the entire household, it's just the garage. In your information for tonight, you should have had some photos taken from last October of the garage and the area surrounding the garage. We're asking for suspension of this as well because it continues to be a nuisance as it is right now. Nothing has changed. And, you know, this went through the normal code enforcement process. On November 1st, they were notified that they had to make these changes by December 1st. They did not. They've done nothing since then. So it's important from a community safety and health perspective that the garage be taken down as soon as possible.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions from council? Committee? Or I'm sorry, switch that. All right, then seeing none, I will recommend approval to all of council for ordinance 2023-39 with suspension. And ask for second. Seconded by Councilman Newman. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion passes with a vote of 3-0. And our final piece of legislation is ordinance 2023-42, which is an ordinance amending section 139.99A of chapter 139 of the Administrative Code entitled Department of Public Safety for the purpose of adding a part-time seasonal position within the Department of Public Safety for the purpose of providing services for the annual deer population management program. Director.
Yes, Madam Chair. The deer management program is actually run out of the Public Safety Director's office, so it falls directly under my purview. The budget is under me. This position actually serves as the third sharpshooter for the program. It's part-time seasonal from January 1 through March 31 only. The other two sharpshooters are regular full-time active duty police officers. One this year happened to be one of our detectives. So it was determined in working with Directors Kidd and Carney, where the position ran through the service department this year, that we go ahead and move it under public safety to keep it all together in one program area. So that's the reason for this legislative request. I'll actually add to that it can't actually sit in the police department, which would make the most sense because of union conflicts. So we thought it best just to move it all under my office to keep it together.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee? Council? Seeing none, then I would make a motion to recommend approval to all of council for ordinance 2023-42 and ask for a second. Seconded by Councilman Mann. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes with a vote of 3-0, and meeting concludes at 7:09 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to now call the Environmental Control Committee to order at 7:10 p.m. Present are committee members Scarl, Gilchrist, Madden, along with council members Glassburn, Heeman, Williamson, Council President Broussard, the Mayor, Law Director, HR Director, Economic Director, Safety Director, Service Director, Recreation Director, Special Assistant to the Mayor, and guests. On the agenda tonight is Resolution 2023-35, excuse me, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service to advertise for bids for leaf collection services as per the specifications on file and after approval by the Board of Control, further authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder. Mayor, would Director Carney be speaking on that tonight? Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chairman, 3-year contract with 3Z is over with, it ended, so we need to put out for bid again. It was a 3-year running contract, and ran from, the first year was $275,000, second year was $284,000, third year was $293,000. So it's just, there's not too many, there's only, pretty much the only game in town, there's a couple other people who might bid on it, then we'll probably end up with 3Z again.
I have one question. So in the resolution, it says it can be up to a 3-year contract. Is that all you'll settle for, is 3 years, or do you do 1, maybe C, or?
We'll put it out for 3, hopefully. That way we
Is
don't
that the
keep
way
it
it's
back.
always been, 3 years?
The last contract was 3 years, that's like, information in front of me.
So obviously it's gone up
A little bit
about
every year.
9,000 every year, so I can anticipate that at 293 this last year, it's definitely gonna probably be over 300.
I
And then,
believe you're right.
and they're pretty much the only game in town, but, I know we had a lot of complaints, at least I did, about work getting out fast enough and things like that. But I believe you stated that they had told you that all the leaves came down at one time this year. and
Well,
they just couldn't keep up with it. I mean, that's
They
what
were-
I was trying to relay to the residents.
Right, they work one side of town, like this year they were going west to east, and next year they're going east to west. And they stick with that routine, and this year the first pass was out there done quickly, because there's no lead, and the second pass took forever. So they actually did 4 passes with no extra cost, because they were bombarded like that in the middle of the season. The leaves stayed up in the tree, and they all came down at once, pretty much.
Were we gonna be able to get our own leaf collector?
We're gonna
for
get
this-
one,
For this fall?
yes, we're gonna get one, but I mean,
No, I know, it's just not gonna be to do, it's just gonna be
but
for,
we could
Emergency
do it
call.
right, no, even just for maintenance, daily,
Ditches.
routine medicine, ditches.
thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from committee? How about council? Seeing no questions further, I move to recommend resolution 2023-35 and ask for a second. Second by Councilwoman Gilchrist. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes 3-0. And with no other items on the agenda, this meeting of environmental control conclude at 7:14. Thank you.
And the finance committee begins at 7:15 p.m. Present are committee members Glasper and Williamson, council members Broussard, Gilchrist, Heeman, Madden, and Scarl, as well as the mayor and the directors of law, HR, economic development, safety, service, recreation, and special assistant to the mayor. The agenda is 2023-37 regarding the Mad Bomber Fireworks contract. Who would like to speak to this explosive issue? Whoever is here.
Fantastic dad joke, Mr. Chairman.
I don't want to hear any sanitary comments tonight.
Mr. Chair, this, contract is a contract that we've, entered into for, several years in the past. It's for $30,000, the same amount as last year. We are looking to, we are changing the date this year to Friday, August 11th. It's kind of a lead into our weekend where we're having the Stephen Flea out at the park in the afternoon, and then later on Saturday, and then later on that night is the concert. So we thought this would be a good lead into that on Friday night, rather than trying to do it on a Sunday night where people is conflicting with work schedules and things like that the next day. So we thought it was kind of a good lead into that, and kind of the idea behind it. Moen is open to it because they don't have, it's a remote work day for them, for most of their employees, so they won't have a ton of staff on site that day. And the mall is in favor as well. We are gonna work a little bit with the mall to keep the road open a little bit longer than we do, or than normal, but that's not an issue for us. We've talked to service and safety, it's not an issue for us there. Our safety forces actually prefer it on a time in August, because it's a lot easier to get them to be able to participate than around a holiday. So it seems to work well for everybody, and it's probably a good thing to do this year.
When is the homecoming festival, or is that date been picked?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the date has been selected by the North Homestead Community Council. It'll be, again, the last weekend of August. Just for your awareness, school will have already started at that point. So again, as Mr. Mazzarello alluded to, the consideration to once again have fireworks on that Sunday, you know, could be an issue for some of our families here in North Homestead who then would be getting their kids ready to go to school the next day.
Sure. Okay. Are there any questions from committee? Any questions from council?
Mr. Carney stay bad bomber like he used to?
He has.
Mr. Glassford kind of-
Next that,
He did way
no
better than I- he did
incendiary
way better than
comments,
I.
right?
He had 2 home runs today, so
Alright,
I took the hat.
In that case,
you know what, I'm sorry.
please go ahead.
And so that, this just didn't make sense to do it with like the, Springvale, 100 year, because it's just timing of that being.
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, yes, as you can imagine, the amount of people and coordination that it takes just to get a date set is an enormous task, and the ability for the administration to have tried to coincide that with the May date with Springville just wasn't possible.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'd move to favorably recommend 2023-37 and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Limpert. All those in favor?
Aye.
That is recommended 3-0. And we will conclude finance at 7:19.
I would like to begin the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting of April 4th, 2023 at 7:20 p.m. Present are committee members Madden, Glassburn, and Gilchrist. Council members Heeman, Limpert, Scarl, and Williamson. Mayor, Safety Director, Service Director, HR, Law Director, and Economic Development, along with the Rec Director and the Assistant Mayor, and guests. On the agenda is Resolution 2023-36, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Service to advertise for bids for rock salt for roadway ice and snow removal for use by the City of North Homestead. This details and specifications on file and further authorizing the Director of Public Service after approval by the Board of Control to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder. Mayor or Service Director?
Mr. Chairman, Director Carney.
Mr. Chair, this is a yearly task we come before council with, to, put up a bid. And, so the contract's good for like fall season, but we just wanna get done now, so. So, hurry up with, something to do every year.
Do we have a surplus of salt this year?
Every year, it's pretty much salt in the tank, but we have a small hutch out there, like, we'll fill it up, like, before the contract's over, we would fill it up to the brim, so that we're at this year's price. And, we'll probably do that in the fall, and fill it up as far as we can, but you're not getting that much more in there. So there's plenty in there, but we always have a lot in there, because you never know when we're gonna need it during winter season.
Any other questions from committee? Council? Go ahead.
Thank you. So, how are we doing for, I mean, how many communities actually don't do the on-demand and do a fixed bid? Because we always do the on-demand, right, where we get a certain amount and we just order it when we need it. Does anybody still do the fixed amount?
We go by the ton,
You get it by the ton, right?
yes, you pay for it by the ton.
Right, but I remember, like years ago, I'd always, they said there was two options of doing it. There was either doing it like, on demand and ordering it by the ton, or you could do a fixed bid up front for a certain amount. They don't do that anymore.
We get a call, we get deliveries all during the season, during the week, we've got, some that loaded out there. It's not on demand, it's at a set price per ton. I don't know, it wouldn't be on demand.
Well, so back in the old days, somebody can help me out here, but they used to do there was, Mr. Bonner always said the other option was to set a certain amount of salt that you had to buy and you get like a lower price, but then you could potentially be stuck with
Oh, yeah.
a ton of salt,
Yes.
right?
I never heard the way you said, described it on demand, yes.
Yeah.
We get it by the ton, that way you're not stuck, and then, like I said, we always have salt in there, and at the end of the season, we'll fill it up at this year's price. And that's just the way it seems to work out.
I was just curious if any other communities around here did it the other way, because
Yeah,
it sounds like we made out pretty good this year by the approach that we're doing.
Right.
We didn't have any issues with getting salt when we needed it.
No. And, it was a great year for snow.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
All the skis are.
yeah, I just wanted to highlight, cause that was something that, we've done it the same way for years and years, but there was kind of two options. It sounds like it's mostly worked out for us the way we did it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Seeing no other questions or comments, I would move to favorably recommend resolution 2023-36 to council and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Glassburn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Resolution, motion passes 3-0. That will conclude streets and transportation at 7:10.